The Brazilian Superior Electoral Tribunal granted the right of reply to former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva within the electoral propaganda campaign of candidate Jair Bolsonaro. British Prime Minister Liz Truss announced that she will resign after just 6 weeks in office. And Russia warned about the possibility of a direct confrontation with Nato over arms supplies it has granted to Ukraine. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada, and these are the news. The Brazilian Superior Electoral Court granted the right of reply to former President Luiz Inácio Lula da Silva within the electoral propaganda campaign of candidate Jair Bolsonaro. Minister Paulo de Tarso Sanseverino's decision guaranteed Lula's campaign 20 inserts of 30 seconds each to counter accusations of being corrupt and a theft made by a piece of Bolsonaro's campaign. It is the first right of reply granted by the Superior Electoral Court in free television advertising in this presidential race. Minister Paulo de Tarso also determined that the Liberal Party campaign should remove the advertising piece from broadcasting channels and media, with a fine of more than $9,000 in case of non-compliance. Peruvian President Pedro Castillo requested from the Organization of American States, OAS, to activate the Inter-American Charter to defend democracy in the country, in the face of threats of a coup d'etat from the legislature and the public prosecutor's office. Previously, Castillo had denounced political persecution against him after the prosecutor's office accused him before Congress of supposedly leading a criminal organization. In response to this, President Castillo said that the Peruvian right-wing and conservative political forces have promoted a new model of a coup d'etat. Castillo said evidence of the political instrumentalization of justice is now undeniable. Bolivian rural and indigenous movements declared themselves in a state of struggle in the face of new destabilization attempts against the government of Luis Arce. Students, trade unions, workers, native peoples, business persons, and transporters are some of the Bolivian sectors calling on the authorities of the Santa Cruz department under the command of Luis Fernando Camacho to agree to sit down and talk with the government and to stop calls for a strike. Meanwhile, the president of the National Confederation of Bolivia's Indigenous Rural Women, Bartolina Sisa, said harassment, humiliation, and threats of a possible violent coup d'etat against the current government, democratically elected in 2020, are latent, and that the Confederation is in a state of alert to prevent any attempt to destabilize the country. Construction workers in Uruguay are carrying out a national strike in defense of social rights and demanding the government to adopt measures to face the increase in poverty and unemployment. Through a communique, the National Single Union of Construction and Annexes Workers said there is hunger and a significant loss of purchasing power of current salaries and pensions in the country. Their demands focus on job security and a counter policy against the privatization of the public sector, and they are also denouncing the reduction of public investment in the construction industry. Now we move on to other topics. Chadian President Muhammad Buhari declared a state of emergency to better contain and manage the damage caused by severe flooding that hit the country for several weeks and affected more than 1 million people.
That the state of emergency will be instituted to better contain and manage this natural disaster. A government response plan is in place. To get the essentials to the flood victims, we need to provide them with shelter, basic necessities, and health provisions.
Recent heavy floods in Nigeria have killed at least 600 people and displaced about 1.3 million since September. The deluge injured more than 2,000 people and partially or completely destroyed over 200,000 homes. Meanwhile, with more than 100,000 hectares of farmland damaged, the floods has also hurt the country's food supply. According to the Minister of Humanitarian Affairs and Disaster Management, Sadia Umar Farouk, 5 states will remain at risk of flooding throughout the end of November. Intense rainfall has been a big contributor to the disaster, and in September, a dam in Cameroon, which borders Nigeria to the east, released excess water. Another major cause is climate change, which leads to more extreme storms and rainfall. United Nations Secretary General Antonio Gutierrez called on India, which is about to take over the G20 presidency in December 2022, to help end the war against nature.
I also congratulate India on its upcoming G20 presidency. The G20 accounts for 80% of global greenhouse gas emissions, but it also represents 80% of global GDP. So the G20 combined has the resources, the know-how and the power to end our war against nature and set us on course to more sustainable living. Mahatma Gandhi reminded us that the world has enough for everyone's need, but not enough for everyone's greed. That perfectly captures the situation we face now. Unfortunately, for the time being, greed is prevailing over need. And we need to reverse this trend.
We'll take a short break now, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back. British Prime Minister Liz Truss announced on Thursday that she will resign after just 6 weeks in office, following a disastrous economic plan that sent the pound plunging and her government into chaos. Having been formally appointed by Queen Elizabeth II on September 6, Truss is now the shortest-serving Prime Minister in British history and will be remembered as one of the most disastrous. The previous holder of the record, George Canning, lasted 119 days in the early 19th century. A leadership contest to decide the next leader of the ruling Conservative Party, who will be default to become the next Prime Minister, is now underway and will conclude in next week.
I recognise, though, given the situation, I cannot deliver the mandate on which I was elected by the Conservative Party. I have therefore spoken to His Majesty the King to notify him that I am resigning as leader of the Conservative Party.
In France, transportation and energy workers continue an inter-union strike. The strike at Gravelines, France's largest nuclear power plant, continues after management rejected the union demands for a 5% wage increase. Nicolas de Certain, the union secretary of the CGT at the Gravelines plant, said that workers are motivated. In addition to the walkout at several refineries, which is causing a serious fuel shortage problem, there is a more discreet but worrying partial strike by maintenance workers at 5 nuclear power plants operated by Électricité de France, a company under total state control and heavily indebted. This protest is affecting a total of 9 reactors at the Cantenom, Tricastin, Bougie, Croix and Gravelines atomic facilities. And the Pope Francis met with Honduran President Xiomara Castro at the Vatican City on Thursday. During the meeting, both expressed satisfaction for the good relations between the two states. Both heads of state focused on the important contribution the Catholic Church offers to Honduras in fields such as education, healthcare, poverty, and migration. They also talk about two crucial topics for Honduras: climate change and the fight against poverty. Both leaders exchanged gifts at the end of the meeting and posed for photos with delegates. Now we address other topics. Russia and Iran have rejected accusations made by Ukraine and its Western partners about the alleged use of Iranian-made drones by Russia. In a statement, Russia's defense ministry said they are using Kyiv and Lancet kamikaze drones, an assertion backed by Russian and Iranian diplomats to United Nations Security Council. Iran's Foreign Minister Hossein Amir-Abdollahian demanded that the Ukrainian government provide evidence to support its accusations. Iran's ambassador to United Nations, Sayed Iravani, said such accusations is just a new Western disinformation campaign against Iran.
Iran categorically rejected unfounded and unsubstantiated claims that Iran has transferred UAVs for the use of the conflict in Ukraine. It is recently disappointing that to pursue their political agenda, these states are trying to launch a disinformation campaign against Iran.
On his part, Russia's ambassador to the United Nations, Dmitry Polyansk, said this is a new lie in the West to put pressure on Iran.
Today we have observed another round of the disinformation campaign from the Security Council by the Western delegations, as they raised in the Council the issue of the UAVs allegedly used by Russia in Ukraine. The aim of our Western colleagues is clear. They attempt to hit two targets at once, inventing an artificial pretext to put pressure on Russia and on Iran.
Russia's foreign ministry said the West is seeking to put pressure on Tehran with accusations that Moscow is using Iran-made drones in Ukraine, allegations that Russia and Iran denied.
Regarding Iran has only one purpose: to put pressure on Iran, and Washington is mobilizing NATO and EU countries to support its position.
On Thursday, Russia warned about the possibility of a direct confrontation with NATO over arms supplies it has granted to Ukraine. Russian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Maria Zakharova said that the European military alliance is approaching a dangerous line of direct military confrontation with Russia. The Russian official pointed out that the NATO member states have not stopped supplying the Kiev regime with arms, ammunition, troop training, and guidance on the conduct of hostilities in the eastern regions. Zakharova stressed that the total military operation and cooperation from the West to Ukraine amounts to more than $42 billion, and more than half of it comes from the U.S. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. On Thursday, Foreign Minister of China, Ma Zhaozhou, presented the foreign policy of his country and the objective of developing a community with a flattering future during the 20th Congress of the Communist Party.
The aims of China's foreign policy is very clear, which is to safeguard the world peace and advance common development, promoting the building of a community with a shared future for mankind. Building a community with a shared future for mankind is where the future lies for people of all countries. China adheres to dialogue and consultation to build a world of lasting peace, is committed to build a secure world for all through joint contribution and shared benefits, sticks to win-win cooperation for a world of common prosperity, continues exchange and mutual learning to build an open and inclusive world, as well as push for a clean and beautiful world through green and low-carbon development.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan and his Azerbaijani counterpart Ilham Aliyev on Thursday jointly inaugurated the Zanglian International Airport in Azerbaijan. Erdogan is the first head of state to land at the Zanglian International Airport, Azerbaijan's second airport. In October 2021, the Turkish president joined his Azerbaijani counterpart in the official opening of the Fuzuli International Airport. During President Erdogan's one-day working visit, the two leaders discussed new projects for the development of the region. Both heads of state held talks to discuss bilateral relations and steps to enhance cooperation. They also exchanged views on current regional and global developments. Lebanon's parliament failed to elect a president for the third time on Thursday, bringing the country closer to institutional deadlock amid a deep financial crisis. Outgoing President Michel Aoun's term ends on October 31st, as divisions remain among political blocs over the makeup of a new cabinet. Lebanon has been without a fully functional government since May. The presidency has fallen vacant several times since the 1975 to 1990 civil war. The country's financial meltdown has sunk the currency by more than 90%, spread poverty, paralyzed the financial system, and frozen depositors out of their savings. The election rules require a 2/3 quorum, meaning no one party or alliance can impose its choice. Speaker of Parliament Nabi Berri set the next session for October 24th. Stores, offices and schools were closed on Thursday as Palestinians went on strike to protest further killings by Israeli forces. Violence in the Israeli-Palestinian conflict has surged in recent months amid near-daily West Bank raids by Israeli forces and an uptick in attacks on troops. More than 100 Palestinian fighters and civilians have been killed since the start of the year, the heaviest toll in Palestine for nearly 7 years, according to the United Nations. In recent days, the Free Palestine platform condemned that before the complicit silence of the international community, and especially Europe and the US, Israel continues with the assassination of Palestinians who resist apartheid and the prolonged Israeli military occupation.
This strike is to convey that every martyr from the Palestinian people belongs to every household in Palestine. The situation under occupation is getting worse and worse. Every day there are killings, closures. Every day something happens. It's too much.
On Thursday, a sustainable oil refinery that reduces fuel imports has been inaugurated in the central Iraqi city of Karbala. Oil and Gas Committee Chairman Yahya al-Izawi affirms that it will refine 140,000 barrels per day without leaving any oil residue, adding that it will employ a large youth workforce. Oil products in Karbala will cover local demand and will help reduce refined product imports. Gasoline producing units have already been completed, including a fluid catalytic cracker and a polynaphtha unit that will produce gasoline with an octane rating of 95 and 90. The refinery will also produce liquefied petroleum gas, jet fuel, gas oil, fuel oil, and asphalt.
This project will refine 140,000 barrels per day with high quality, therefore leaving no oil residues as all refineries do. This project is environmentally friendly and very important. It will employ a large workforce of young people. This project also provides great financial liquidity to Iraq and does not import oil derivatives. This project will supply the stations and all important oil derivatives, and we hope that there will be similar projects in all the nation.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.